and welcome to my walkthrough of Alienate with commentary. First thing I'm doing in all of these is giving a shout out to someone. So for Alienate, my shout out goes to my cousin Stuart. He was the first person I've ever seen complete this game. We were sitting in his parents' house many years ago, and he suddenly announced he was going to complete Alienate. He was a few years older than me, still is obviously, and he'd been practicing the game and he completed it. And until then, I didn't believe it was possible to complete Alienate. I played it a bit and messed around, but I think I'd say thank you, Stuart, for making me realise that it is actually possible to complete a game of Alienate. He said he was going to do it, and he did it. And a lot of the techniques and tricks and tips that I got from watching him I still use now, and I still use in this walkthrough. So yeah, thank you very much, Stuart. A little bit about Alienate. So you're the robot who's got to activate all the cryogenic chambers in this spaceship. So the story is that your spaceship is coming close to its destination, and you've been activated to activate all the chambers. I think there's a story about aliens invading the ship, or the defense mechanisms being activated, and because of that it's a little bit harder than it should be, which is why it's such a difficult game. And there are 24 of those chambers in the game, and each one of the chambers needs a valve or an object, and you can see I've collected 3 of those valves or objects. I'll probably use the words valve and objects for the objects in this game. I'll exchange one for the other as I'm talking about the game. And there are 4 different objects you can collect. There's a cube, the piece of cheese, and the dome shape, the 3 that I've got there. And there's another one which is a square-based pyramid, but I'll probably call a triangle. I know it isn't a triangle, it's a square-based pyramid, but it's kind of triangular. And this is the first of the chambers that I come into when I recorded this walkthrough, and as you can see, you drop the correct object, it goes to the socket, and it's completed, so that's 1. So 1 down, 23 left to go. Because there's 4 different object types in the game and 24 chambers, there are 6 chambers needing each one of the valve types. And in the game there are 8 of each valve type, so you don't have to get absolutely every single object to be able to complete the game. A bit like Nightlaw. In Nightlaw, anyone who's played Nightlaw, you need to collect 14 objects in Nightlaw, and there are a lot more than 14. Sorry, I had to pause there for the phone. So as I was saying, there are 8 of each object type, and you need 6 of each to complete the game. Also in the game, 2 of the objects will be replaced by extra lives. So there are definitely at least 6. I don't know if the game protects against you only having 6 of any one object type. So for example, the pieces of cheese, those cylinders, which I always call pieces of cheese, if say 2 of them, I don't know if it stops say 2 of them being replaced for extra life, so there's only exactly 6 in the game, or if there's always 7 of 2 types and 8 of the other 2. But anyway, that's it. You got to get 6 of each, and you've got to put them in the correct sockets to be able to complete the game. This is of course a game in the isometric style. There's lots of other good classic games. The first in this kind of isometric, more blocky, single room style was probably Nightlaw. I know there was Ant Attack before that, and probably some other obscure games, but Nightlaw was really the first in this style, and then there were lots of other famous ones. Sweevo's World, which I've never actually played. Batman, Head Over Heels, both of which I really like. Don't like Head Over Heels as much as this. This is my favourite of those games, of all the kind of 3D isometric games for the Spectrum that there were. This is definitely my number 1 favourite. I think my favourite game of this style altogether though is a John Rittman game, although it's not head over heels of Batman. It's Monster Max for the Game Boy. Monster Max for the Game Boy is a terrific game. If you like this kind of game and you've never played it, honestly, dig it out. Monster Max is a fantastic game. Now, anyone who listened to my Harrier Attack walkthrough will know that I've had a bit of trouble recording my commentaries for this. So this game's nearly an hour long, and I don't think I can talk non-stop for over an hour. You'll probably be glad to hear that. So I'll probably pause at some points. I've made a few notes and got a bit of trivia, but I won't be talking for the full hour. That's for certain. I'll be quiet in certain spots, and as I go through the game, I'll point out hints and tips for various parts of the game and aspects of the game. Such as that one there. That's quite a basic of this type of isometric game. Picking up an object and jumping at the same time so you don't leave the object behind. And bit more about this game, a bit more about when I recorded this. You'll see kind of there and a few other times that sometimes the control that I use on the game seems a bit off. And the reason for that is probably the way I did this. I tend to play my Spectrum games emulated on a handheld device. I've got a Dingu. If you haven't got one of those, it's a small handheld, open source handheld. Has a Linux-based operating system, and you can get various emulators for it. And I tend to use something like that to play my handheld games and my Spectrum games. So I was used to playing this kind of isometric game on an object like a device like that has a D-pad. So when I came to record it on the Spectrum, I couldn't get used to the keys. I was trying to get used to the keys, and I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll just make myself a D-pad for my Spectrum. Now, you couldn't buy a D-pad for the Spectrum. They didn't make them back in the 80s. You got your joystick interface for your Spectrum, and you get a joystick with it. You get QuickShot 2 or something like that. And I never saw a commercially available joypad for the Spectrum. I'm sure there were. Some. I think I remember reading you could use Mega Drive gamepads. They use the 9-pin Atari standard socket that you need for Spectrum joysticks. So what I ended up doing is making one. I bought an old PC gamepad with the PC 15-pin socket standard that we used to use on PCs before USB. Everything was USB. And I took that and I opened it and I looked at the circuit board and worked out what wires to solder where, what tracks to cut, and how I could make that D-pad into a 9-pin Atari standard D-pad that I could use for my Spectrum. I did that. I wired it all up, got a little male 9-pin D socket for the end of the cable, cut off the old one, worked out which colours would go where, soldered it in, and it worked first time. I was amazed actually. But getting used to this, I think this was the first game I recorded using that, and I was still getting used to the controller a bit. So sometimes if the control goes off, it's, well, a bad workman blames his tools, so I'm blaming anything that goes a bit awry in this game on that. Now, as I said before, I don't think I can talk continually about this game for a full hour. So there'll be a few pauses. I'll have moments where I stop talking and just watch the action and probably give some little comments on the action as we go through. Now, this next area we're coming into now, there's a lot of the valves, the objects to pick up, and there are also a lot of chambers to activate. So as we go through this area, I'll probably stay quiet for a bit and just talk about little tips for the game. Actually, this is an interesting one, this first one. This room's quite strange because you only do one step away from that triangle to be able to jump over it. And normally you'd want to do 2 steps away from the triangle to jump over it. And in different rooms, you kind of got to learn that. That's obviously a shortcut you take. You can go through the kind of mazy, windy path to get to the exit, but it takes a bit longer. And one of the things about the game is because you're coming to your destination, your ship's coming to the destination. You only have a set number of light years, and those go down quickly. I've watched this through a few times now, and you'll find that towards the end I'm actually running pretty close to the line with my light years, and needed to keep going and taking shortcuts so I could do that. There's another few things that I'll point out during the game. So I've got an extra life. I got an extra life pretty close to the start. So as you can see, I've got 5 lives now. I think I lose a few of those lives over the course of this game. Yeah, again, just 1 step away. And normally when you want to jump over something, you want to take 2 steps away from it. So to complete this game, the way I think of it is in blocks, and to complete it you've got to learn the map. You've got to learn where all the chambers are and which of the valves they take. What I actually find is when I've kind of set out to be able to complete the game, you start and you have a game and you can collect a couple of objects and get around the map a bit, but you'll invariably die trying different things. Then you find a few chambers and you can activate them, and you get lucky and you activate 1, then 2, then 3 or 4, then 5 or 6. And then you get to the point where you can kind of have a good idea where all the chambers are. You can remember them, but you can't remember in the game which ones you have done and which one you haven't done and where they are. And there's a kind of leap where you go from not knowing what you need to do and not being quite able to finish it to remembering where everything is. And the way I do that is I think of it in blocks. So this block that we're coming into, I think of the south of the ship. And just to explain that, so the door I came out of there, that's north in this room, and the door I'm going to go out of, that's south. And then obviously east and west are the other 2 directions, so I'll go west into this room. This room can be a bit tricky. The trick in this room is to drop an object in the corner there and push the blocks over to it and use that to make a stairway to get to the socket that you need to put the valve in. There's probably another way of doing this. If someone sees this, and they'll probably just say to me, "Oh yeah, no, there's a much easier way to do this. You just do X, Y, or Z." Then I'm happy for people to do that. I don't claim to be an expert, a complete expert on any of the games I put walkthroughs out for. I just enjoy doing it, really. So, oh, that was a mistake. I'll have to go out the room and come back in and reset it. So yeah, and this area here is kind of, I think of as the far south of the ship, and there are three sockets in this area. One takes a triangle, one takes a dome, and one takes a cheesy bit. And you get quite a lot of valves when you do this. It's a good place to go and collect valves. Another really good place to collect valves, which is also kind of southeast in the ship, at least it is in my mind. It's an area very close to this, but I don't think you can get across from one to the other, is where I started. And when you start the game, you will randomly start in one of several locations. And that place I started there is a really good place to start because you can get a lot of valves from that, and it sets you up well for completing the rest of the game. It's quite fiddly to do this one, as you can see. Nice when you use the direction pad to get the little robot where I want him, so I can get the triangle valve. Oops, forgot to pick up as I jump there. technique in this room is to line yourself up. If you don't line yourself up exactly with those two square blocks, the funny kind of spiky things, I guess they are. They're not really spikes, they're kind of cylinders. They'll kill you. So what you need to do is use them to line yourself up. Use the man. If you walk into the side of the Cryonaut, the astronaut, in his suit, that lines you up. Another tip is don't jump off there because the eggshells will kill you. And what you'll find is when I go back into that room and pick the object that I've left in the room up, the eggshells will start to fall. Which you don't want to do until you've activated the chamber, for obvious reasons. I don't know why eggshells kill you. You're a big robot with what looks like an ingot of gold for a head, and yet a few eggshells kill you. In this room, there's not really much of a technique in this room, but the kind of technique is to time your jumping at the right point. So you need to jump across that set of bricks at the back, and you need to get onto that one that's rising up, and you want to time it just as your head peeks over, about there, start jumping. And just keep your finger on jump and go all the way through. Any earlier than that and you land on that eggshell, and that'll kill you. Any later than that and you'll, on your second jump, you'll hit the eggshell and that'll kill you. There's a good technique in this room, the corner technique. You can actually pick up an object from a corner, which can save a lot of time and make it a lot easier. So if you're 1 pixel adjacent to an object, you can pick it up even if that's diagonal, which is why you can pick that up. Now this one just takes a bit of practice, this room. You jump, turn, jump, pick up, jump. One thing you do have in this game, and I'll point it out later, Sims Nightlore actually, is that if you keep your finger on jump when you jump, you do a big jump, and if you let it go, you do a small jump. Now, one thing that can happen in some rooms, and it could happen in this one if I were to die, but I don't think I do, but I think I do later, is that where that cube is now, I'll probably pick it up here, yeah, where that cube was, if I'd have died in the room, where the cube was, there's one of these blocks, these blocks, this tower of blocks that used to make this staircase, they would respawn, and would respawn where the cube was, the valve, which would have destroyed it. And it does actually happen to me later in the game, you'll see, it happens in a little bit in this game. But it's something to be aware of. You can't just leave your objects anywhere. As I said before, in this game there's a lot of, in this area, in this kind of middle south piece of the ship, there are a lot of valves, so you can only collect 3 at any one time. So I had to go back and get that one. And there are some I left in the previous area, so I'll go back there and probably collect them. I'd imagine I would. Secret in this room is to just always go around the edge. Try and go up the middle, you'll probably die. Another thing I should probably mention about this game is that it was recorded on an original ZX Spectrum. I basically played the game through a DVD recorder, recorded it onto a DVD, and then ripped the DVD. Which is why the video quality of this one isn't too bad. With my latest walkthroughs, I've actually moved over to using Spectaculator, because that's a really, really good emulator. And it can produce AVIs straight out the box, so you get much better video quality. Now this room's nearly right back to the centre of the ship, so there's an area near here, I'll point it out when I get back there, that I think of as the centre of the ship, and what you'll see me doing, and a really good technique for playing the game, is this: I'll collect up valves from various areas around the ship, and I leave them in that area so that I can come back later and collect them and activate chambers in various areas. Now this technique of pushing blocks to get rid of mines, a friend of mine at work watched this walkthrough, the one without the commentary, and was saying, I didn't know you could do that. Oh, I wish I'd known that. And that's what I'm talking about. So that cube object has now disappeared. And later in the game I actually have to go looking for an extra cube to finish the game. Because of that, and if I hadn't have done that, if I hadn't have had that cube disappear on me, I would have been okay. So a bit of trivia about the game. The game was released in 1985. And I had a look on Wikipedia, and another bit of trivia that it said is that it has an amusing reprogramming animation when you fail. So obviously it won't happen in this one because it's a complete walkthrough and I complete the game. But if you didn't, and I'm sure anyone who's ever played this game has seen this, your robot is reprogrammed by being hit by sticks and boxing gloves and things like that. Something else, and this is, I don't think this is on any Wikipedia or anything, but this game was part of the Ultimate Collection, which I bought. That's how I bought this. I bought it on the Ultimate Collection, which was a collection I think put out by US Gold of old Ultimate games, and it was a fantastic collection. It had all the old Ultimate games, the great ones, the early ones: Jetpack, Psst, Cookie, Trans-Am, Attic Attack, Saber Wolf, Nightlaw. This Underworld was conspicuous by its absence from the collection, actually, which I didn't mind. I'm not a fan of Underworld. I think Underworld is probably the game that has the best cover art and poster that I've ever seen. I think that the kind of devil on Underworld looks fantastic, and yet you're let down slightly then by the game itself and how it works. I really liked it. I think once, a long time ago, I did complete it. I did play it a lot, but it's certainly not my favourite of the Ultimate games. In fact, I think this is. I think of all the games, I think this is possibly my favourite. It's one of my favourite games of all time. I should do that sometime. I'll do a top 10 Spectrum games with one of my videos. I'll go through my top 10. And see what they are. Of course, I don't expect them to be the same as everybody else's. And people always say, "How could you miss out game X, Y, and Z?" But There are so many great games for the ZX Spectrum. To be honest with you, getting down to a top 10 would be really, really difficult. So this is kind of the central area. You can start here, but this is kind of the hub of the ship. And those three objects I've got there, the cube, the dome, and the triangle, I need for where I think of as the eastmost part of the ship. So I'll be going there. I'm pretty sure I'm going there to get there. Now, a good technique in here in this is to push that object up so that that mousy Dalek thing doesn't come over and kill you. And that piece, it's good when there's a dome piece in there, because you need a few dome pieces around this area of the ship. So in there, for example. So having a dome in there means you can pick it up later in the game and use it. Now in this room you'll see another standard technique, which is that when you drop an object, it moves in a room with a valve socket. If it's the same valve that is needed for the room, it'll move towards it, and in that one you can walk across. Now to get back from this one, you need to just drop off the edge. You can actually drop off the edge and not die there. I did too many steps, but then drop an object and move a bit further across, and you can actually make the jump to get back. It's not easy. As you can see, I didn't make it there. I died there. It's quite an easy room to die in, that. So this bit is really deep in the kind of southeast corner of the ship that I'm going into now. And I need both the cube and the dome piece to do that. Now I'm nearly halfway through my light years, and I've done 10 of the chambers. 14 left to go, so probably a bit behind schedule, which, as I mentioned earlier, the amount of time you get runs out quite quickly. Using the walking on top of the object as it's drawn towards the valve technique again. Now this next room can really scare the life out of you if you don't know what's coming. Ah! Now that's a horrible thing. That's hard to jump over. I think you can jump over it without an object. There is a technique for doing it, but it is really difficult to get past if you don't have an object. And I wouldn't advise anyone to try. So yeah, this game was on the Ultimate Collection, and in the Ultimate Collection there was a hints and tips sheet. And I went back before I recorded this and had a look at it on mine, and couldn't find mine. So I went online and found a transcript of it, and there aren't any hints and tips really in it. This game is probably among the most difficult Ultimate release for the Spectrum. There were no hints and tips for it. I've also lost my poster from the Ultimate Collection, so I don't really have much of it left. And the trick in this room is to keep away from the mousy Dalek thing. Halfway through the game and almost exactly halfway through the light years. An interesting thing now is the way I've got the objects arranged in my inventory. So I've got one, then a gap, then one, which is a really good way to have it, because it means you can drop one and then pick it up and jump, and you haven't left anything behind, rather than having to cycle all the way through your objects, which you'd have had to do in that room if I hadn't have had them like that. If I'd have had 3 or 2 together, you kind of got to do 2 or 3 drops. Drop and pickups. Useful in this room as well, because you do quite a few drop and pick ups to get through this room. Now these kind of shimmering spell things, they look a lot like the spell out of Nightlore. Those things, the way to control them, you'll see in a second, is drop an object on top of them, and then they just follow as you walk. It's a lot easier if you do that, as you can see. The one done. So the thing about the game map in this game is actually, if you look at the map, if you go onto World of Spectrum or somewhere like that and have a look at the map, you'll see that it's set out as a spaceship. In this room, you've just got to use that kind of pillar of blocks to make a staircase to get up to the socket. Yeah, and so in my thinking, where north, south, east, and west are, the nose of the spaceship, the front of it, is to the far north, and in that far north, there's a socket that takes a dome piece. I don't think I come to it yet. I think it's a little bit. I think I do this one and go back out of this area. Go and do a different area. Oof, if all three of those had dropped down, I'd have had to start again for this one. That's lucky. Now that turn and go left. That bad jump there, I'm blaming on the controller. I told you a bad workman blames his tails. Well, yep, same again. That's a controller, that's not me being completely incompetent. Yep, controller again, honest gov. Hey, at last! I'm getting this piece is quite scary, because you need to get to the edge of here, drop an object, and the reason I can't drop one there is you can only have 2 objects in a room at a time, so I'll have to go around and do it again. I must admit, with all this time wasting on this, I'm surprised I didn't run out of light years. So get to the edge, then drop an object and get to the edge of that, then turn, jump, and if you haven't got it right, the block that you land on disappears, and you plummet to your death, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I'm leaving that there to come back for later. I'll have to come back here later with some dome. You need three dome pieces is what I have left to do around here. The one in the room, that'll come through in a minute, and there's 2 others. Yeah, that one. I've got that one and 2 others to do, so I'm pretty sure I'll come back to 3 domes later. What I guess I'm going to do now is, to the far west of the ship, or at least that's how I think of that area, you need 2 cubes and a triangle. And I'm pretty sure I'll have another cube in the centerpiece, in the center of the ship, like a hub of the ship as I think of it. And I'll probably get that cube and go onto that piece. There's some interesting rooms in that. There's one really mean looking room, difficult room that I'll talk about when I come to it. So one other thing I'd say about this game is I've always thought it would make a great remake. If you were to remake this game, I think it could be a terrific remake. You could do it as kind of a spaceship, a 3D kind of arcade adventure type, where I guess I'm thinking of something like the factory section of Donkey Kong 64, if anyone's played that, kind of like that, where you're reactivating parts of the ship that let you get to other parts and things like that. I think that could be really cool kind of modern reimagining of this. You could call it Alien 9. It'll never happen. There's no way it's ever going to happen, but you can always dream, can't you? So that area I went in there was near where I started, and I went and collected the last few valves that I'd left over there. And this bit then takes me back into the hub. And looking at what I've got, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna, yeah, 2 cubes in a triangle and go off to the far west end of the ship, the west wing. So 10 valves left to do. That will be these 3. The 3 dome pieces that I mentioned before. So that'll be 6, then 4 left. There's actually, in the room that I've just come past, there was a triangle valve needed, and there's another one right next to it, so that'll be another 2, so that'll take us to 8, and I think I need a cube and a piece of cheese kind of at the front end of the ship. So those are the 10 I need left. Right, in this room, that block in the corner that I'm coming up to now, that'll go down if the Dalek isn't underneath it, so in case you get this wrong, it's always a good idea to jump on that when the Dalek's underneath, and you can always go back and have another go. Right, this is the evil room, look at that! Full of mines, 2 cyber rats. That's a room that's going to kill you if any does. I've died in this room a few times, and the secret to this room is to just stand on an object and wait. Sometimes you push you back, sometimes you push you forward. Sometimes it takes forever for you to be able to get through, but eventually you can. My mum used to say to me, patience was a virtue when I was small, and it certainly is in this room. Now in this room, the trick is you drop an object and push the top 2 of those blocks onto it. And you don't want to go too far past it. So the trick is not to have your object too far away from the blocks, otherwise you fall down the gap. And you didn't there. And you can do the walk on the object trick again. Now you see the game slowing down. There's a lot of moving. When there's a lot of moving things on the screen, the game always slows down a little bit. You can see it's slowed down quite a bit in this one. I don't know why they have those two moving platforms. Complete red herrings. They don't do anything. You can't jump onto them. You'd be crazy to. I think they're watching this room, and I think I do it is you don't want to push those 3 blocks too far. Because if they get trapped under the platform where the door is, you can't jump up onto them. And I have a feeling I do. And I've got to sort it out. Yeah, there. Right, now what I'll actually need to do is push them out so I can do it from the side. And what I'll do here is I line myself up with those blocks there, which means I can go through. There's another technique where you, in the same as the room to the far south, the mid-south place, where I use the cryonaut to line myself up to the right position. I use those blocks there to line myself up to the right position. Gotta think in 3 dimensions. Now in this one, I remember years ago I used to mess around with those 2 blocks, trying to use that to make the staircase. But what you actually do is, if you overlap, you kind of half overlap yourself with those 4. You can just make those to make a staircase and get straight up onto there. A lot easier and a lot quicker that way. In this room, this is one of the rooms where you've got to use the small jump. So that spell, I'll drop an object on it to control it, and line myself up, and you do a big jump and then a small jump here, and that lands you on top of the object. You can just collect it and go on your merry way. The technique in this room is to drop an object on that moving platform and then push it onto that pyramid, which will kill you. It's a lot easier if you just push the object off onto there, and then that makes the jump easier to do. You can walk onto the top of that and pick it up and jump. It's another extra life, which is good. Again, that was another room that slowed down a lot. Come all the way back through here. There is a way to get back round to where I started from there, but it's a really horrible room. There's a cyber rat and there's all kinds of nasty, so I always avoid that room. It's worse than this one. It's quite risky to jump off an object in this room and run like that, so I was obviously aware of how few light years I had left and was trying to gain a bit of time any way I could. Oops. Go back. Now, the reason I'll move that object on is for this next room here. Because when you come from this direction, you quickly want to cycle through your objects. And obviously I didn't do it quick enough there, because it's quicker if you don't wait for that to go up and down an extra time. Right, my guess now would be I'm going to try and find 3... Well, I need 2. I only need 2 dome pieces, don't I, to complete, because I've got... Yeah, I just need 1 more dome piece, and I've got the one in the room on the way there, so... Yeah, there it is. I'll go and do those 3 dome pieces next, and one of those dome pieces is in the top of the ship, north end of the ship, the nose. So there it is, the 3rd dome piece. And what I'll probably do here is let the mouse Dalek push it to the edge, and then I can easily jump over, pick it up, and jump over to the other side. The mousey Dalek with a big red nose. Maybe it's a Rudolph Dalek. No real problems in this room. You do have to drop an object on top of that stack of 2 to be able to get up to the platform, so I'll probably... Yeah, I was going to say I probably wouldn't be able to cycle through all 3 before it went off, so that was the best thing to do there. Six rooms to go, nearly there. There's the piece I left there earlier. If anyone was wondering why, I knew that I'd probably have to come back through this area, and having an extra piece is always useful. There's a number of ways you can do this one. I like to drop an object there so I can push these along and then a bit and then pick it up back up. Not that far to go now. Although because earlier that cube was destroyed, I'll have to go looking for a cube to be able to finish this off. I haven't got one. Here we go, use a piece to remove the mines again. There's one of those big horrible shimmering things in this next room. And a cyber mouse. This one looks horrible. It's not as bad as some of the others though, because once you've jumped over and got onto that centerpiece, obviously you can just hang around there, and the centerpiece and the big shimmery thing actually shield the cyber mouse from you. Now the trick in this one is to make sure you go far enough. If you don't quite go far enough, the Rudolph Dalek will kill you. Yeah, I'm exactly in line there. Which probably isn't the right thing to do. I tend to go a little bit further, so you see the object kind of come towards the south end of the screen. So So 4 left. 2 triangles, 1 cube, 1 cheesy bit. I'm going to have to go searching for a cube. And again, no problem there. Now what you need to do in this room is make sure you get those 2 blocks close enough so that you can make the jump back. Ooh, that doesn't look close enough to me. It wasn't. It's back down. Right, this is big jump, small jump, big jump, big jump. If you do 2 big jumps at the start, if you keep your finger on jump, you'll jump over that next block and die. You'll get impaled on those triangles and lose a life. My guess is I'll go west and do the 2 triangles, or will I go looking for a cube? I think I'm going to go back along. I'm going to see if I've got a cube back along here. That's what I must have done, but from what I remember earlier I didn't have. No! Nearly went wrong. Got 2 cheesy bits, yeah. Yep, looks like I'm going to go do these 2 triangles. And then go searching for a cube. Quest for the cube. I must do it, but I know I do it, and I managed to complete this, because this is my walkthrough. It's the same walkthrough that I've already got on YouTube. But I don't have long left. This room's got the old half eggshells in the ceiling, deadly eggshells. So you need to put one on this platform to be able to jump up an object. Oh, I'll have to go out the room and start again. So always remember you can do that, unless you're going to destroy an object, as per what I said earlier. You can always go out of a room and start again if you think you've messed it up. Other thing not to do is jump off the top of there. If you jump off the top of there, you're going to nut one of the eggshells and die. Alright, move that object 2 on again so I can do this room how I said. Drop, pick up and jump. There's a little area just south of here where there's a lot of objects. I'm pretty sure I go there. Keep jumping on this. There's a kind of rodeo on that spell thing. Ride 'em, cowboy. Might go west. Now remember before I said in one of the rooms you had to only move 1 away, 1 step away. I'll move 2 here. You've got to move 2 steps away in this room. It looks identical. That object is really hard to get on top of there. Luckily I don't need it. Alright, there's my cube. Hooray! I've got the pieces I need to do the last 2. I need this and I need a cheesy bit, and I know I've got 2 of them in the centre room, so sorted. Remember, 1 step away, 2 steps away. Yeah, it's 2 steps away in this one. Pick up and jump. Now the other way. That would have been a long way around. Ride 'em, cowboy! Here we go. This room reminds me of a Night Law room with the Baron. Don't know if that's... I haven't been in that room before. Yeah, there's one where a Baron's walking backwards and forwards just before a portcullis. It's quite similar to that. Let's get a cheesy bit. Another one of those spells, they really do get on your nerves, actually. There's a cube there. I could have got that one. I didn't have to go for a quest, but I did. Now, let's have a look. Here we go. So the cube is in here. That's pretty easy. This is a very, very easy room to do. One left to go. You get a real sense of satisfaction when you complete this game. It's really, really, really good. You know that you've accomplished something, as it were, when you complete this game. So there we go. Nearly there. Now the trick in this room is you need to get on that block that's just above the socket for the valve. So you need to get onto that platform I'm pushing along, drop another object, position it right, jump, and then keep your finger on jump so you jump again. And that'll jump you over the top of the valve. If you don't, you'll fall onto the eggshells and die. And there we go. Game done! And thank you for watching my walkthrough. I hope people now believe this game's possible to complete and they enjoy it. Now, our robot will get a well-deserved oil bath for doing this, so please leave comments, subscribe. If you think there's an easier way to do any of the rooms, let me know. I'm always glad to learn new tricks, and hope to see you next time.